The Williams family lived in a world where wealth wasn't just measured by dollars, but by legacy, reputation, and power. Their sprawling estate in Connecticut had been in the family for generations, the business empire built from the ground up by Robert Williams, the patriarch, and his meticulous attention to detail. Every corner of the mansion screamed success. Every artifact told a story of dominance in the corporate world. And yet, amidst all this, Emily Williams, the youngest of three, felt invisible. She had grown up quietly, her accomplishments often dismissed, her ambitions minimized by family expectations. While her brothers, Jason and Michael, received accolades, bonuses, and endless encouragement, Emily was told to focus on finishing school, settle down, and find a husband. From the age of 10, she knew her voice carried little weight in family discussions. She spoke, but it rarely mattered. She acted, but her efforts were seldom acknowledged. "You're smart, Emily, but you're too delicate for this industry," her father would say more than once, while congratulating her brothers on their internships. Her mother, Margaret, was kinder but cautious. She never intended to be cruel. She simply operated under the same worldview her husband had shaped. Boys inherited the business. Girls inherited the home. It was tradition, and traditions were not questioned. By the time Emily turned 28, she had quietly moved out of her family's estate to pursue her own career in technology. She founded a small software startup, developing innovative platforms that went largely unnoticed outside niche circles. Yet, Emily remained cautious. She had learned early that the family's approval was optional, and that ambition could be a dangerous spark if shown too openly. Despite her success, Emily continued to attend family events, always aware of her place. She smiled politely, complimented the food, laughed at the stories about her brother's exploits, and carefully avoided topics that might highlight her own achievements. Every Christmas dinner was a reminder. Her brothers were the heirs, the family favorites, the ones the world saw and applauded. And Emily? She was the invisible daughter. This particular Christmas was like every other. Snow fell gently outside the estate, a perfect, picturesque holiday scene. The lights twinkled, ornaments sparkled, and the aroma of roast turkey filled the air. Inside, the family gathered around the grand dining table. Emily entered with a polite nod to her brothers and parents. Her father, Robert, cleared his throat. "Before we start dinner, I have an announcement." Emily's heart sank slightly. Announcements in the Williams household almost always favored someone else. She braced herself. "I've decided this year," Robert continued, "that Jason and Michael will officially take the reins of the company. They've proven their commitment, skill, and loyalty over the years. From today, they will manage operations, finances, and expansion decisions." The room erupted in applause, smiles, and congratulations, directed entirely at her brothers. Emily forced a smile, clapped politely, and felt the familiar tight knot of invisibility in her chest. Her mother whispered, "Don't worry, Emily. Your time will come." Emily wanted to believe her. She wanted to hope. But years of being overlooked had built a thick wall of skepticism around her. She knew her mother's words were kind, but kindness alone didn't create opportunity. After dinner, while her brothers toasted champagne in the study and her parents congratulated them on keeping the legacy alive, Emily slipped into the library. She sat at the grand oak desk, a stack of her own work papers at her side. This was the place where she could breathe, where she could remember that she was capable, that she was more than just a shadow in her family's light. As she reviewed her startup's growth reports, a quiet smile crept across her face. She had built something real, something independent, something her family would never see coming. "They handed me nothing," she whispered to herself. "But I can still create everything." Her mind wandered to the countless nights she spent coding, designing, strategizing. The late nights at the office, the endless hours building software, pitching investors, and debugging systems no one had noticed or applauded. But it didn't matter. She had learned to measure success not by their recognition, but by her own standards. Emily's phone buzzed with a notification, an email from a tech investor expressing interest in funding her next venture. She couldn't help but grin. Opportunity didn't come knocking at her family's estate. It came knocking at her own door. The following days were a mix of public appearances with the family and private triumphs in her professional life. At family gatherings, her brothers spoke endlessly about expansion plans, corporate achievements, and philanthropic endeavors. Emily listened, occasionally nodding, occasionally offering comments that were politely acknowledged and quickly dismissed. In the background, though, she quietly built connections with venture capitalists, tech innovators, and media outlets. While her family celebrated perceived success, she quietly prepared a launch that would one day eclipse everything her brothers had inherited. "I'm not invisible," Emily murmured one night, reviewing her company's financial projections. "I'm just unseen, for now." Emily's story is one of patience, strategy, and quiet rebellion. It's the story of a woman underestimated by her own blood, a woman who learned early that approval was a luxury she couldn't rely on. She had the vision, the talent, and the determination, but the world she was born into tried to keep her in a corner, unseen and unheard. And yet, beneath the polite smiles and the Christmas lights, a storm was brewing. A storm of innovation, ambition, and a twist of fate that would one day change everything. By the end of this Christmas, Emily wouldn't just be the overlooked daughter. She would become a figure that shocked her family, her community, and eventually the world. The holiday lights flickered softly across the Williams estate, their glow dancing off polished silverware and crystal glasses. The table was laden with roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, candied yams, and all the traditional trimmings. Laughter and chatter filled the room, or at least all the spaces that mattered. For Emily, it felt more like background noise, a soundtrack to a ritual she had performed for decades, Christmas dinners where she was seen but never acknowledged. Her father, Robert Williams, raised his glass. "Everyone, I have an announcement," he said, his voice commanding the room's attention. The clinking of forks and murmurs of conversation came to a halt. All eyes turned toward him, except for Emily's. She already knew, some part of her always did, that this announcement would not be for her benefit. Robert cleared his throat and continued, "As you know, the business has grown exponentially this year. I've decided that leadership of the company will be officially handed over to Jason and Michael. They have demonstrated commitment, vision, and loyalty. Starting today, all operational control, decision-making, and expansion plans will be theirs." The room erupted into applause. Emily's brothers beamed, standing proudly as their achievements were publicly validated. Her mother whispered congratulations to them, her eyes bright with pride. Emily clapped politely, but her heart sank with the familiar ache of invisibility. "Not me again," she thought. "They think I don't exist in this room." Her brothers were showered with praise from every corner of the table. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all echoing the sentiment. "Congratulations, Jason. Well done, Michael." Emily's presence barely registered, as if she were a shadow, an extra decoration on the perimeter of the celebration. "Why does this keep happening?" Emily whispered under her breath, her hands clutching her napkin. "Every year, the spotlight passes me by, and I sit here smiling while they take everything." As the formalities of the announcement faded, her father motioned for dessert. Emily excused herself momentarily, retreating to the library where the quiet and order of books offered a reprieve from the suffocating praise of her brothers. She allowed herself a few moments to reflect, not on bitterness, but on the reality of her situation. For years, she had been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. She had watched her brothers ascend effortlessly, rewarded for connections, confidence, and the family name. And she? She had always been told to wait, to be patient, to focus on other pursuits. It wasn't cruelty, it was tradition, but the effect was the same: invisibility. Maybe patience isn't enough, Emily thought. Maybe it's time for something else. She returned to the table just as her father was recounting a story about the company's founding. Emily forced a polite smile, listening as he spoke about milestones she had never been allowed to influence. Her brothers laughed at the right moments, basking in recognition that she knew was hollow. Hollow, because it was based on inheritance and approval, not merit. Later that evening, as the guests began to leave, her mother approached her. "Emily, darling, I know this isn't easy, but your time will come," Margaret said softly, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Emily nodded, her expression carefully neutral. Thank you, Mom, she said, hiding the fire that burned quietly inside her. She knew her mother meant well, but maternal comfort couldn't undo decades of dismissal. She needed action, not reassurance. Alone in her room later that night, Emily reflected on the cumulative impact of years of being underestimated. Every slight, every dismissive comment, every "you'll understand when you're older," it had built something inside her: determination, resilience, and the understanding that she couldn't rely on anyone else to validate her potential. I won't wait for them to see me, she thought. I will show them, and the world, what I am capable of. Emily's private venture had been growing steadily, quietly. Her startup, a technology company focused on innovative software solutions, had flown under the radar, gaining traction only in niche industry circles. She had kept it secret not out of shame, but out of strategy. Visibility in her family's eyes had never meant acknowledgement, only judgment. That Christmas, however, the juxtaposition was stark. While her brothers celebrated a legacy handed down to them, Emily's work had been entirely her own creation. The irony was sweet, almost delicious. She had built a foundation of true merit, while her family celebrated the illusion of accomplishment. They've been given a kingdom, she mused, gazing out the window at the snow-dusted estate. But I've built one from scratch. The days following Christmas were filled with tension beneath the surface of the holiday cheer. Family members made casual remarks about the company, unintentionally highlighting Emily's absence from key decisions. "Emily, you should have sat in on the board meeting," her father said one evening. "You could have contributed." Emily smiled politely. "I appreciate that, Dad," she replied, her tone calm but her mind racing. She had learned early in life that patience and quiet intelligence were her allies, and impulsive reactions were liabilities. Behind the polite acknowledgement, she planned her next moves. Investors were awaiting updates on her startup, and media outlets were beginning to notice its innovative approaches. The contrast between her invisible presence at the family table and her growing influence in the real world fueled her determination. One night, Emily sat alone in her office reviewing projections, investor reports, and market analyses. The soft hum of her computer was comforting, a stark contrast to the clinking of glasses and forced laughter at the family estate. She reflected on the years of being overlooked, the dismissive comments, the subtle undermining, the constant pressure to conform. "I can't let them define my value," she whispered. "I've got to define it myself." The room felt alive with possibility. Every chart, every line of code, every business strategy she reviewed was a small victory, a step toward the day when she would no longer be invisible. It was a night of reckoning, not in confrontation, but in preparation. Emily knew that her family's announcement at Christmas was not an end, but a catalyst. The shock they delivered had only strengthened her resolve. One day they'll see, she thought, a determined smile crossing her face, right single quote, and it won't be a gift. They'll see what I built on my own. While the Williams family celebrated their festive victory, the formal handover of the family empire to her brothers, Emily Williams retreated into a quiet world of strategy, innovation, and calculated patience. The same people who had overlooked her entire life would soon discover that the invisible daughter had been quietly building something far more powerful than mere inheritance. From her modest office overlooking a small urban park, Emily reviewed her startup's latest metrics. Her company, an emerging tech firm specializing in AI-driven logistics solutions, had quietly gained traction among major distributors and international partners. The software she and her small dedicated team had developed was scalable, revolutionary, and ready for a major funding round. Yet, to the outside world, and especially to her family, her achievements remained hidden. They laughed at me, ignored me, told me to focus on small things while they took the family empire for granted, she whispered to herself. Soon, they'll see who the real player is. Emily's daily routine was a study in discipline. Mornings began with an intense review of global market trends. Afternoons were spent coordinating with engineers, designers, and marketing strategists. Evenings were reserved for outreach to potential investors and mentoring her small but growing team. Every move was deliberate. Every decision had purpose. She had learned that incremental, invisible progress could build a future that would ultimately dwarf any hand-me-down empire. the most critical part of Emily's secret plan was her understanding of timing. She didn't want her family to know too soon, because premature revelation could have brought unnecessary interference, jealousy, or sabotage. Her visibility, when it came, had to be perfect, undeniable, public, and indisputable. If they think I'm powerless now, that's their advantage, she thought, but I'll turn it into my greatest weapon. To ensure success, Emily had been careful about her investors. She chose those who valued innovation over pedigree, talent over family name. While her brothers relied on inherited influence and contacts, Emily built credibility through performance, proof of concept, and measurable results. The irony was not lost on her. While her family applauded tradition, she leveraged transparency and merit. Despite her outward calm, Emily had moments of doubt. The contrast between the Williams family's public celebration and her private grind sometimes left her feeling like an outsider in her own life. But each challenge reinforced her resolve. Every early morning coding session, every late-night pitch meeting, every risk taken with limited resources became bricks in the foundation of a future that was entirely hers. Her team often marveled at her composure. One engineer, noticing her meticulous attention to detail, asked, "Emily, how do you stay so calm under pressure?" She smiled knowingly. "Pressure is only heavy when it comes from people who don't understand your value. I've spent my whole life being underestimated. It's taught me patience, focus, and strategy." A major breakthrough arrived one Wednesday afternoon. A logistics conglomerate with global reach expressed strong interest in integrating Emily's AI platform into its distribution network. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the validation that her work was not just theoretical, but impactful at the highest levels. She called her most trusted investor, Daniel, to discuss the deal. "This is it," she said, voice calm but electric with anticipation. "We're ready to scale. It's time to move from hidden to undeniable." Daniel's excitement was palpable. "Emily, this is massive. When it hits the media, there will be no denying your vision. Your family, your brothers, they'll have to see it." Emily smiled, not with arrogance, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had been right all along. "Exactly," she said. "They handed me nothing, but I built everything anyway." In preparation for the public reveal, Emily carefully mapped out her communication strategy. Forbes, industry analysts, and key tech journalists were all scheduled to receive detailed briefings. The goal was simple yet audacious. When her achievements became known, they would be undeniable, verified, and celebrated. She also considered the emotional component. Her family, particularly her father, had underestimated her for decades. The impact of their disbelief made the eventual reveal more poignant. It wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about demonstrating that talent, perseverance, and intellect could outshine entitlement. Emily often reflected on the years of subtle slights, the dismissive comments, the invisible existence she endured during family gatherings. She transformed these memories into motivation. "Every time they ignored me, I built a little more," she mused. "Every time they laughed, I coded harder. Every dismissal became fuel." As the weeks progressed, Emily's company grew quietly but dramatically. Investors signed term sheets. Analysts began to speculate about the company's potential. Key media outlets requested interviews, intrigued by the innovative platform she had developed. Emily's public profile remained carefully controlled, released strategically to maximize impact. Meanwhile, her brothers continued their work at the family empire, unaware that Emily's world was expanding in ways they could never predict. They were confident in their positions, sure of their own superiority. But the foundation they had relied upon, inheritance, influence, and name recognition, was vulnerable to disruption by merit and ingenuity. "They think the spotlight is theirs forever," Emily thought one night, reviewing her launch plans. "But the stage is bigger than they imagine, and I'm already center stage." The final element of Emily's secret plan involved timing the reveal with a narrative that would capture public attention. Forbes, known for profiling billionaires, innovators, and industry disruptors, was her target. A feature in their magazine would not just validate her accomplishments, it would immortalize her story of overlooked potential turned extraordinary success. She meticulously prepared every detail: investor endorsements, client success stories, and a clear timeline of how she had built the company from the ground up. When the profile went live, the contrast between her invisible family role and her undeniable public triumph would be impossible to ignore. "This isn't about revenge," Emily reminded herself. Write single quote, write single quote. "It's about recognition for the work I've done and the value I've created. The rest is just a side effect." By the end of part 3, the stage was set. Emily had silently created a juggernaut of innovation while her family celebrated entitlement. The contrast was stark, the tension palpable, and the inevitable reveal loomed like a storm on the horizon. The invisible daughter had been underestimated for decades, but in the coming months, her carefully executed plan would place her in a position that not even her father could ignore. The family empire, once thought untouchable, would be overshadowed by the empire Emily had built with her own hands, intellect, and relentless perseverance. The morning sunlight streamed through Emily's office windows, casting long shadows across the sleek desks and humming servers of her startup. Everything was in place. Months of meticulous planning, careful networking, and relentless hard work had built to this exact moment. Today, the world would finally see what Emily Williams had quietly accomplished. She had already notified Forbes magazine, ensuring that her story, the story of the overlooked daughter who had built a billion-dollar tech empire, would be featured in their upcoming issue. The feature was not just an article, it was a statement. Every chart, every investor endorsement, every client success story was documented, verified, and presented in a narrative that highlighted both her ingenuity and her perseverance. "This is it," Emily whispered, staring at her reflection in the glass wall. "They'll finally see, not just my work, but me." Meanwhile, the Williams family went about their usual routines. Her brothers, Jason and Michael, were focused on the inherited empire, confident that their positions and legacy were secure. Their attention to Emily had never gone beyond polite acknowledgement, and today was no exception. They had no idea that the ground beneath their carefully constructed world was about to shift. Emily's phone buzzed with the first emails from Forbes editors, confirming the final layout and headline: "From invisible daughter to billion-dollar visionary, Emily Williams' secret empire." Her heart raced. She knew the headline alone would grab attention, not just from the public, but from her own family who had spent years underestimating her. "Let's make this unforgettable," she thought. "Let's make it undeniable." Forbes released the feature early online, before the print edition hit subscribers' mailboxes. Within hours, the article began to circulate across social media, tech forums, and business news outlets. Headlines flashed across news feeds: "Emily Williams, billionaire breakthrough," "Overlooked daughter outshines family empire," "How a secret startup created a $2.80 billion tech giant." Emily watched the reaction unfold, a mixture of disbelief, admiration, and sheer awe. Notifications from investors, journalists, and industry leaders flooded her inbox. Every message confirmed the undeniable reality. Emily Williams was now a household name in the business world. "Finally," she breathed, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "Finally, the world sees what I've built." Across town, the Williams estate was in chaos. Jason picked up his phone, scrolling frantically through his social media feed. Michael burst into the room, waving his tablet. "Dad, have you seen this? Forbes? Emily? She's worth billions," Jason exclaimed, disbelief etched across his face. Robert Williams, still sipping his morning coffee, squinted at the screen. "Emily, that's impossible. She doesn't have the experience, the leadership. How did she—" His words faltered as he read through the feature, each line a blow to his perception of control and family hierarchy. "How did she do this without us noticing?" Michael muttered, staring at the glowing tablet as if the screen itself had betrayed him. The family's shock was compounded by the meticulous details Forbes had included. Financial growth charts, partnerships with global distributors, investor testimonials, and a timeline that clearly demonstrated Emily's independent journey, all undeniable proof of her accomplishments. There was no room for debate, no room for doubt. Emily's phone rang. It was her mother, Emily, I saw the Forbes feature, Margaret said, her voice trembling. I didn't realize. I didn't understand. Emily paused, a small smile forming. Mom, it's not about understanding. It's about me showing what I'm capable of. The rest is just a surprise for them. Her mother's silence was telling. She had always wanted to believe in Emily's potential, but societal expectations and tradition had clouded her judgment. Now the proof was in black and white, unmistakable, undeniable, and public. In the following hours, Emily's inbox was flooded with invitations to speak at conferences, participate in interviews, and consult with major corporations. Her team celebrated quietly, fully aware of the storm of recognition that had been unleashed. For them, this moment validated not only Emily's leadership, but the countless hours they had dedicated to the project. Meanwhile, the Williams family scrambled to adjust. Jason and Michael tried to contact Emily, leaving messages that were polite but tinged with desperation. They could no longer dismiss her, could no longer assume she would remain in the background. We have to acknowledge her now, Robert said, his voice heavy with reluctant respect. She's a billionaire. Emily received their messages later that day. She read them carefully, savoring the irony. The same family that had overlooked her for decades was now reaching out, attempting to reclaim a connection in the wake of her undeniable success. They can reach out, Emily thought, closing her laptop. But I decide how and if they matter to me. Social media erupted with public commentary. Articles praised Emily's ingenuity, her perseverance, and her strategic brilliance. Comments highlighted the stark contrast between her overlooked role in the family and the extraordinary empire she had created independently. This is the ultimate underdog story, one post read. They ignored her, and now she's untouchable, another commented. Proof that talent can't be suppressed by family favoritism, noted a business analyst. The attention was overwhelming but empowering. Emily navigated interviews with poise, emphasizing her journey, her dedication, and the importance of believing in oneself despite societal or familial limitations. She transformed what could have been a tale of vengeance into a narrative of inspiration. I didn't build this to show them up, Emily explained in one televised interview. I built it because I believed in the work, the vision, and the impact it could have on the world. By the end of the week, the feature had become a trending story across major platforms. The family was forced into the public eye, reacting to a reality they could no longer control. Emily, however, remained in command of her narrative, guiding her team, investors, and the media with precision. She had anticipated this moment for months, ensuring that her message was clear. Success was earned, not handed down. This is more than just money, she told herself, reflecting on the journey from invisible daughter to recognized billionaire. It's about proof, persistence, and power, the power of creating your own destiny. The reveal to Forbes was not just a personal triumph, it was a public vindication, a statement that echoed far beyond the walls of the Williams estate. Emily Williams had transformed invisibility into influence, silence into recognition, and determination into a legacy that no family bias could suppress. The morning after the Forbes article went live, the Williams estate was far from festive. The snow outside glistened in the sunlight, but inside, tension crackled like static electricity. The family's legacy, the empire they had long considered secure, had been unexpectedly upended by the youngest daughter they had dismissed for decades. Jason, Emily's eldest brother, was the first to react. His phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, each one bringing a new wave of disbelief. Headlines flashed repeatedly. Emily Williams, billionaire breakthrough, overlooked daughter outshines family empire, from invisible to influential, the story of Emily Williams. This can't be real, Jason muttered, his fingers trembling as he scrolled. How did she... We've been in control all these years. Michael, his younger brother, entered the room with wide eyes, clutching a tablet. Jason, look at this! She's worth $2.8 billion. 2.8! How did she keep this secret? Their father, Robert, set down his coffee with a heavy sigh, trying to comprehend the news. He had always prided himself on seeing talent, nurturing it, and rewarding it. Yet somehow, he had misjudged Emily entirely. All these years, I thought I knew my children, he muttered, shaking his head. I was wrong about her. Even their mother, Margaret, seemed shaken. She had always quietly supported Emily in small ways, but the system of tradition and inheritance had constrained her. Now she was forced to confront the fact that Emily's brilliance had never needed permission. It had only needed freedom. I knew she was talented, Margaret whispered, voice trembling, but I never imagined this magnitude. The brothers' initial shock quickly shifted into a combination of jealousy, fear, and begrudging admiration. Jason paced the library, muttering under his breath. We handed her nothing, and she built everything. She's untouchable now. Michael, more impulsive, tried calling Emily, leaving voice messages that ranged from polite congratulations to panicked pleas. Emily, we didn't realize. We just want to talk. We need to understand this. Emily read the messages calmly later that evening, a small smile tugging at her lips. For years, she had been ignored, underestimated, and dismissed. Now, her family reached out, finally recognizing her, not because she sought their approval, but because the world could no longer ignore her. They can call, they can congratulate, they can apologize if they want, Emily thought. But I decide what that means to me. Family gatherings that week were filled with an unusual tension. Cousins, aunts, and uncles whispered about Emily's success, some expressing admiration, others envy. Friends of the family called to congratulate her, and for the first time, Emily's presence was impossible to overlook. At the next family meeting, Robert tried to address the situation directly. Emily, I underestimated you. I didn't see the scope of your work, your vision. You've accomplished something remarkable, something none of us predicted. Emily listened quietly, choosing her words carefully. Thank you, Dad, she said, her tone measured. I didn't build this to prove anything to you. I built it because I believed in the work and the impact it could have. Recognition from you or anyone else is secondary. Her words carried a quiet authority, a reminder that she had always operated independently. While her family had focused on titles, inheritance, and appearances, Emily had focused on results, innovation, and tangible impact. The brothers were less composed. Jason tried to argue a point about strategy and leadership, attempting to downplay Emily's accomplishments. Yes, she did well with her startup, but the family company, our legacy, is still ours. Emily looked at him calmly, her expression serene. Your inheritance doesn't diminish my achievements, and my work doesn't diminish the family business. But it does prove one thing: talent cannot be ignored or inherited. It must be cultivated and earned, Michael interjected, frustration lacing his voice. We're just trying to understand how you did it all without anyone noticing. Was it luck, connections, something we don't know? Emily shook her head. No luck, no shortcuts, just strategy, focus, and relentless dedication. What I built is entirely real and entirely mine. You can study it, analyze it, or question it, but it won't change the fact that it exists. The family's initial shock gradually shifted into introspection. Robert, who had prided himself on his ability to judge character and potential, began to reflect on his mistakes. I've spent so long nurturing the obvious, I missed the extraordinary, he admitted privately to Margaret. Margaret, moved by the realization, placed a hand on his shoulder. Perhaps we were too focused on tradition. Emily's success shows that potential isn't always where we expect it. Even Jason and Michael, who had reacted with envy and disbelief, had to reckon with the truth. Emily had succeeded on her own terms outside of the family's control, and without the support or approval they had relied upon their whole lives. She outplayed us without even trying to compete in our world, Jason admitted quietly one night, a mixture of frustration and awe in his voice. Emily, meanwhile, remained composed and focused. She chose not to gloat or retaliate. Her success spoke for itself, and she allowed the public recognition to underscore the contrast between her invisible past and her visible present. This isn't about revenge, Emily reminded herself. It's about showing what can be achieved when talent is nurtured, ambition is respected, and perseverance is relentless. Her family, slowly coming to terms with the revelation, began to ask questions, not just about the company, but about her journey, her challenges, and her strategy. Emily answered thoughtfully, guiding the conversation with the same clarity and confidence that had built her empire. "I hope you see that this isn't a threat to you," she said gently to her father. "It's a demonstration that potential can flourish even without recognition. I built this because I had to, not because I wanted to compete with you." By the end of the week, the family had reached a tentative understanding. Respect replaced disbelief, admiration replaced envy, and dialogue replaced silence. Emily had forced them to reconsider not only her capabilities, but also the assumptions they had long held about success, inheritance, and talent. "I didn't need their approval," Emily reflected privately. "But I did need the freedom to act, to create, and to lead. That freedom was mine all along." The Williams family reaction marked a pivotal turning point, a moment of reckoning, acknowledgement, and growth. While the shock of Emily's success had initially disrupted their world, it also provided a lens through which they could reconsider their values, traditions, and perceptions of talent. After the Forbes article went live, Emily Williams's life transformed almost overnight. She had spent years quietly building her empire, meticulously planning every move, and now the world finally recognized her genius. The overlooked daughter had become a symbol of talent, perseverance, and independence, a living testament to the power of quiet determination. Her inbox overflowed with messages from media outlets, investors, and business leaders worldwide. Invitations poured in for speaking engagements, conferences, and interviews. Analysts dissected her strategies, praising her vision and innovation. Social media exploded with admiration as the story of the invisible daughter turned billionaire captured hearts and imaginations globally. "I didn't expect this magnitude," Emily admitted to her assistant one morning, sipping coffee in her sleek office overlooking the city skyline. Write single quote. "But it's not about fame, it's about proving what's possible when you refuse to be invisible." Emily's personal vindication was as profound as the public recognition. For decades, she had been underestimated by her own family. Every Christmas dinner, every casual remark, every dismissive glance had shaped her understanding of her place in the world. And yet, instead of succumbing to bitterness, she channeled those experiences into strategy, ambition, and creativity. "Every time they overlooked me," she reflected, "I built a little more, planned a little harder, and strengthened my resolve. I didn't seek revenge, I sought freedom." Freedom had come, and it was sweeter than any recognition from her family could provide. The world now knew her worth, not through inheritance or favoritism, but through undeniable achievement. The public response was overwhelming. Social media users shared the story widely. She was invisible, underestimated, and ignored. Now she's a billionaire. Proof that talent cannot be suppressed. Emily Williams is the ultimate underdog story. Incredible perseverance. This is inspiring. She didn't wait for approval. She created her own destiny. Industry leaders praised her not just for her financial success, but for her innovative approach and leadership style. Her company's growth was a blueprint for aspiring entrepreneurs, particularly women navigating male-dominated industries. "It's incredible to see a female entrepreneur not just succeed, but dominate in tech," commented one analyst. Emily Williams has changed the narrative on what's possible. Her family watched the public acclaim with a mixture of awe, humility, and reflection. Robert Williams, once confident in his ability to judge talent, began to understand the limitations of traditional assumptions. "I misjudged her," he admitted quietly to Margaret, shaking his head. "I focused on inheritance and titles, not on raw ability. I never realized what she was capable of." Margaret nodded, tears in her eyes. "I always believed in her quietly, but tradition kept me from advocating for her. Now the world is seeing what I've known all along." Jason and Michael, on the other hand, struggled to reconcile their envy and admiration. They had inherited a family empire, but Emily had created something unprecedented on her own. Their reactions were a mixture of pride, shock, and the uncomfortable realization that meritocracy could outshine inheritance. I always thought we had it all, Jason muttered to Michael, scrolling through another article. But she built a kingdom from scratch, and it's hers entirely. Emily handled her newfound fame with grace and humility. She emphasized the importance of persistence, vision, and self-belief in interviews, consistently framing her story as an inspiration rather than a confrontation. I didn't build this to prove anything to my family, she explained in a televised interview. I built it because I believed in the work, the people, and the impact it could have. Recognition from anyone else is secondary. Her approach earned respect from a global audience. She became a role model for aspiring entrepreneurs, particularly women, proving that success is not dictated by family approval or societal expectations. It is earned through talent, perseverance, and strategic action. Emily also used this vindication to help others. She invested in mentoring programs, startup incubators, and initiatives designed to support women in technology and business. She transformed personal triumph into a broader mission, empowering others to create, innovate, and thrive independently. I want people to see that your past, your family, or anyone underestimating you doesn't define your potential, she said during a keynote address. Your determination, focus, and creativity do. Her story inspired countless individuals to pursue their dreams, no matter the obstacles. Letters poured in from young entrepreneurs, students, and professionals who had faced similar challenges of being overlooked, underestimated, or undervalued. Emily responded personally to many, encouraging them to keep building, keep believing, and keep moving forward. In her personal life, Emily found a sense of peace and empowerment she had never experienced. She no longer measured herself against her brother's achievements or sought validation from her parents. Recognition had come, not as a gift, but as a reflection of her own hard work, intelligence, and perseverance. I am enough, she told herself one evening, watching the city lights from her office. I don't need their approval to know my worth. I've earned it, and that's all that matters. Her relationship with her family gradually evolved. While the shock of her success initially caused tension and jealousy, over time, they began to respect her accomplishments and acknowledge her independence. The dynamic shifted from condescension to admiration, creating space for healthier interactions built on mutual recognition rather than hierarchy or entitlement. By the end of this chapter in her life, Emily's vindication was both public and personal. She had proven that diligence, intelligence, and courage could overcome systemic biases, family favoritism, and societal expectations. The invisible daughter had not only claimed her place in the business world, but had also rewritten the narrative of her family, inspiring countless others to redefine what it means to succeed on one's own terms. This is more than money, Emily reflected privately. It's proof that perseverance and belief in yourself can outshine neglect and doubt. It's validation of every late night, every sacrifice, and every moment I refused to be invisible. After months of public attention, Forbes features, and family reckonings, Emily Williams finally reached a place of peace. The storm of recognition had settled, leaving behind clarity, independence, and a profound sense of empowerment. She had transformed from the invisible daughter, overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed, into a figure of undeniable influence and inspiration. The family dynamic had shifted in ways Emily had long anticipated. Her father, Robert, had begun to acknowledge her not as the quiet, overlooked daughter, but as a visionary leader in her own right. Margaret, her mother, expressed quiet pride, finally able to celebrate her daughter's brilliance without the constraints of societal or familial expectations. Her brothers, Jason and Michael, adjusted to the reality that their inherited empire could no longer define the family narrative alone. I've earned my place in the world, Emily thought, reflecting on the journey. And now, I get to live fully on my terms. Emily's personal and professional lives began to flourish in harmony. She expanded her company globally, building partnerships, innovating products, and mentoring a new generation of entrepreneurs. Each achievement was a reminder of the journey from invisibility to influence, and each challenge became an opportunity to reaffirm the lessons she had learned. Patience, persistence, and strategic thinking are more powerful than privilege. She frequently shared her story at conferences, workshops, and interviews, Audiences were captivated, not merely by the staggering financial success, but by the authenticity and resilience behind it. Emily spoke openly about being underestimated, about the family dynamics that had shaped her determination, and about the importance of self-belief in achieving extraordinary outcomes. "Your past does not define you," she told one audience. "Every challenge, every dismissal, every obstacle is a chance to grow stronger and smarter. Don't wait for recognition. Create your own." Emily also focused on giving back. She established scholarships, funded innovation labs, and launched mentoring programs for young women in technology and business. Her goal was clear: to ensure that others would not face the same limitations she had endured. While her personal vindication had been powerful, creating pathways for others became an equally important part of her legacy. "Success isn't meaningful if it only benefits you," she reflected. "True impact comes from lifting others as you climb." Her philanthropic initiatives garnered widespread attention, reinforcing her image as a leader who combined business acumen with empathy and social responsibility. Her story became more than a tale of personal triumph. It became a blueprint for empowerment, inspiring others to take control of their destinies regardless of societal or familial constraints. Family interactions, once tense and fraught with jealousy, gradually evolved into mutual respect. Emily did not need to compete for acknowledgement. Her accomplishments spoke for themselves. Conversations with her brothers became more thoughtful, grounded in recognition rather than rivalry. "I underestimated her for too long," Jason admitted during a private family meeting. "Watching her succeed independently has been humbling and inspiring." Emily responded with calm authority. "It's never too late to acknowledge someone's abilities. But my success was never about being acknowledged. It was about doing the work, consistently, until the results spoke for themselves." Her parents expressed pride, tempered with reflection. Robert said quietly, "I've learned that talent and perseverance often come quietly, and I'm proud I can finally see it in you, Emily." "Thank you," Emily replied, her voice soft yet confident. "I hope my story can be a lesson, not just for the family, but for everyone listening. You are capable of more than you realize." As Emily looked forward, she embraced a new philosophy. Independence and intentionality were the keys to fulfillment. She no longer measured herself against her family, societal expectations, or anyone else's timeline. Every project, every investment, every mentorship opportunity was chosen deliberately, reflecting her values and vision. "I've built my life intentionally," she reflected, "and that gives me freedom no inheritance could ever provide. I am my own architect, my own champion, and my own legacy." Her story, now widely recognized, became a beacon for those struggling with invisibility, whether within their families, workplaces, or communities. Emily's journey illustrated that recognition and respect are not prerequisites for success. They are natural byproducts of perseverance, intelligence, and authenticity. In closing, Emily's transformation from overlooked daughter to globally recognized billionaire encapsulated more than financial achievement. It was a story of justice, of finally claiming what was rightfully hers, not as revenge, but as a testament to her abilities and vision. Her journey reminded the world that independence, courage, and strategic thinking are powerful forces, capable of overcoming bias, neglect, and societal expectations. "I am grateful for every challenge, every slight, every underestimated moment," Emily reflected. "They built the foundation for the determination that drives me today." Her future was not defined by family approval, luck, or legacy. It was defined by her own hands, mind, and heart. Emily Williams had not only secured her wealth, but her autonomy, influence, and enduring impact. If you love real-life stories of triumph against all odds, subscribe to Truth Unraveled and hit the bell to follow more shocking stories that will inspire and empower you. Share this story to inspire someone who needs to hear that perseverance and self-belief can change everything.